Hey guys, welcome. Today we have the AT-AT or AT-AT, however you want to say it. This is the Revell model. Comes in, this is the bigger kit. This is a 153 scale, or at least that's what it says. It has 65 parts. Comes with kind of a movie poster, some acrylic paint, and the Revell glue, which is actually pretty good. Gives you a little bit of container of that. And so you can see on the box here, they actually have kind of the actual model displayed. It's just not painted very well. I think they could have did a better job if they would have had this like more professionally done. It would have looked a whole lot better, because it kind of looks kind of toyish the way you have it right now. But I think there's, I've already opened this kit to look at it like I usually do. I think there's a lot of potential here. The detail's pretty accurate. It gives you, of course, a nice instruction manual that always comes with these Revell kits. Again, you get these glues and stuff. I don't know how good they are. You get a cheap paintbrush, but the glue is actually pretty good. So definitely you can use that. I actually have a container that I use that I bought. So that's actually pretty decent glue. There are some issues with the details of the model. Some of the connectors right here for the leg joints have no detail and they just don't fit well. So I'll be replacing those, probably 3D printing something and putting that into place. Not going to worry about trying to light it, though there's plenty of room if you want to build out a cockpit for the inside of the head. But I'm not going to worry about that. I just want to kind of build it and paint it. It's a really nice size. As you can see right here, one of the panels here. Time we get it all built up, it should look really nice. So excited about the size of it. I kind of prefer the bigger models. And it's some pretty nice detail, very reminiscent of the old MPC one, just bigger. And I'll get this thing built up and get it painted, and hopefully we'll have a nice display when it's done. All right, just work on the assembly here. I can put together this neck piece. You have a seam that runs all the way across. So whenever you have like this kind of textured pattern in the seam, it's always kind of a cleanup issue. I'm just taking this triangle file and kind of rescoring back in the edges, sanding it down kind of level, and then rescoring back in the grooves in each one. It's hard to get this exactly perfect because they're so small, but it looks a lot better than it did. You do have some articulation. Here's the bottom part of the body, and it has a kind of a slotted area where this simply will drop in, and you'll be able to kind of turn left and right, but there'll be no up or down movement. And then for the head, you have these connecting points. Here's the bottom of the head, and there's two different sizes joining pins, so you can't get that wrong. So make sure you put it in. Of course, you'll be able to turn this around. So the head will move left and right, but again, there'll be no up and down. So you can kind of turn it in this way. So there is some articulation, but not as much as probably some of the other kits have. So working on that, a lot of cleanup on the parts here on this kind of ankle joint. There's a big seam line or a mold line that it's a mold line that comes across. So a lot of sanding on different parts to get them to look good. Now, one of my biggest issues so far has been the upper leg joint. You get these connectors, you get 8 of these. Now they fit pretty good here, but in here, as you can see, this doesn't look good at all. So what I'll probably do is glue everything into place. I 3D printed, I designed these on Tinkercad and printed them out. And it took me several tries to kind of get this right. But this will go in there and give a much more accurate look, cleaner look, a little bit more detail than that. I don't need it to, I'm not going to worry about articulating this joint. I'll probably set it permanently and then just glue everything into place. I tried putting a connecting point on there and this wasn't working out. Plus it's resin, I just don't know how strong that would be. And if I leave that in there and try to do this on top, it just doesn't look good. You can definitely tell the gap, but I think that would look good and make for a much visually appealing model with that kind of detail. So that's where I'm at with that stuff. I am also printing out some bottoms to go on the bottom of the feet, so we don't have this big hollow area. Right now it's just kind of a circle. They're in the midst of printing out as we speak. It may take some thin styrene just to put some bottoms on these feet. Most of them won't be seen. I think one will probably be slightly candid, so I definitely want to make sure to at least do the one that's going to be, people are going to be able to see up underneath and see that. The other ones will probably be pretty flat. I'll still probably put the bottoms, I may not worry about the pads here. So that's where I'm at with all this, and still I don't think I'm going to try to do any kind of lighting or extra detail. I just don't, for the minimal lighting, to me it's a lot of work to try to figure out how you're going to light it and run the cables. You have to run the cables up to the feet, and obviously you have this one point here. You'd have to, not impossible, just for the gain of the head the cockpit area being lit, and it just doesn't appeal to me. So I'm just going to build it as is and hopefully do a good paint job, add some detail and things of that nature, and see where we end up. Alright, as you can see, I'm working on the feet of our AT-AT. It comes in like these three basic parts. You have this one big part here, and then there's a cap that goes on that kind of locks the ankle joint into place. You can see where I've been sanding to get rid of that panel line or seam line that was created there, so I get rid of that. Now I've put in some very thin styrene on the toes to block those in. They're kind of hollow and they don't look very good, and of course we have this big open space here. Now I found this round object on Tinkercad, and it's pre-made files, and I thought it had a nice kind of texture pattern to it. Maybe it didn't look like a, the bottom of a foot or for a machine or something. And I just scaled it to size, which I believe was 57 millimeters. And I put some little styrene in there to kind of lock it in place. And that will fit in there. And it was a nice fit and a really nice look. Most of this won't even be seen. Most of the feet will be flat on the surface. But if they are candid in any way, then we have at least some texture there. So I did that on the kind of the upper part of the leg. You have to join these two pieces come together and they create pretty good seam all the way around. So sanding those down and filling those in. So there's kind of, I guess, a calf part that will connect those. So I'm going to work on getting all these feet done. I like the way that looks. Pretty simple. And we'll keep going. All right, so I decided to light the cockpit up here, the head of the walker. I had to cut away this section right here. That was a solid piece. You're going to have to remove some supports. There's a chin piece right here that kind of fits in there. I've already removed a section of that kind of fit up in there. So we'll just have to glue that together. So I just drilled a series of holes. And then took my hobby knife and some files to clean it up. So that's where we'll have this lit here. We'll put some kind of lens in there, probably some kind of red clear styrene in there. And it'll probably be diffused to where you really can't see in. I don't plan on building any kind of cockpit in there, but we may put something in there to look like there's some pilots in there. So the issue I was having was kind of figure out how to run the wiring and battery. The body is, you'd have to cut away, I was trying to figure out how to cut away sections to where it could self-contain a battery in there. And it just has these locking tabs, and it wasn't going to be an easy process to try to put it inside this body to where I could have access to the battery when I need to replace it. So since this is only going to have one or two LEDs, small LEDs, probably something like this, 5mm or possibly 3mm. I'll probably put two just as a backup, as a redundancy in case one goes. But looking at the model, I saw this, I guess, transmission or whatever that goes to the front of the walker on the bottom. And this will kind of go in like this. and then you have this cap that goes in there. Well, that's a pretty good space in there, and so I test fit, and sure enough, you can get one of these 3-volt lithium batteries. This even has the holder for it, so you can wire it up, and that easily fits inside there. So I can drill a hole up through the bottom of the walker, and then I'll go through the front into the neck. I'll have to drill a hole somewhere in here for those wires to come out and to light the cockpit. And then I'll just, I've already put some magnets. One of them's come loose, so I have to reattach that magnet, but it will fit in like that. And you will not be able to notice that it doesn't belong there. And then when I need to access the battery, I'll just have this, my plan is just have this kind of loose inside there. I'm going to change out these wires with some different wiring to where I can just kind of pull it out with maybe some tweezers, change the battery, and then tuck it back in there. Plenty of room for wiring. And then I can just throw this back on like so, and that will hold just fine. So that's my plan for lighting the head of our walker. All right, so a lot of work on getting all these legs done. They're pretty much all copies of each other. You can see I have the bottoms all done, and everything's working at the moment. I'm really happy with my 3D design and printed hip joints, I guess. I had a little piece of styrene. There's a little detail that was missing there. A lot of sanding to get these seams on these different parts. To get those to go away. So those are done now. Mostly, there's still probably some touch up once I prime it. Now, as far as the lighting, in this transmission part, I guess, that goes up front, I showed you before. I now have my battery holder in there, and my magnets hold that in place. It's been glued together and mostly sanded. Again, once I prime it, there might be some more detail. Now this wire, as you can see, the bottom part of our body here, this will just run straight up through here like that and get our power into the body. Of course, now it has to go through the neck, but I need to add a switch. So as you can see, I've drilled out a hole right here. That will be on the bottom side. I don't think it will be very noticeable at all. We'll glue that in position, and then we'll just look like I add a piece of detail, and then double click there. So I'll have to secure that in place. So that will be our switch. That will be also inside the body. So wires will go there, and then it will run into, as you can see, the neck. Now I may change this wiring. I was just doing this to kind of plan it all out. That will connect there, and the wires will come through there. Of course, we'll have some LEDs right there. So that's all coming along. Pretty close to all the sub-assemblies. All the legs are done. So really just down to kind of getting this wiring together and getting it glued up. There's a few other little pieces I need to add. I need to do the guns that go on the side of the head here and get that all done, but that'll come in after we get this body all together. So from here, I think I'm going to go ahead and assemble the rest of the model and make it one piece and come back now that you kind of see how the wiring's going through that. So not too hard to figure out on that one. And we'll just get this thing put together and go from there. All right, well, here's the completed build of our AT-AT walker. We still have all the painting, which will take a lot to do, but I'm happy with how the builds come along. There will be some cleanup once I put some primer on there of some of the joints and whatnot, but he's pretty much ready to go. Everything's installed, and the lights work, everything's the way it should be. Now the legs, once I got into a pose that I liked, which is actually some finagling to get those legs to work right, I went ahead and glued those in place. So he won't be, he's a display. I'm not going to have him moving around or just, you know, trying to find a different thing. I just wanted to find one and go with it. That'll make it easier to paint the rest of them. I thought about leaving the legs off, but being that I'm going to be manipulating all these joints, and just manipulating the joints to get them in position would have ruined the paint job on the legs. So those are all glued into place, and I'm just when we come back on the next episode of this build, we're going to start off by priming them and get on with the paint job. So thanks for joining me on this video of the build, and until next time, everybody have a good one.